Good morning, saints. It is Monday, April 8th, and we've got a busy week ahead. It's a lot of things going on. My brain is just like, oh, okay. Hey, Charlene. Yeah, so this week is going to do the most. I see you. I'm watching. I'm waiting. I'm listening. I'm prepared. So yeah. I keep throwing out this mutable madness thing. This mutable madness 2019. What the flip mode squad is that? What is it? What is mutable madness? Why is it mutable? Why is it mad? What comes to mind is when you're having a debate with someone and like this person is just going hard on this point. They're like, yo, I'm right, and this is why, and you're wrong, and this is why, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And then you go, but, and you point out the loophole in their logic and in their reasoning, and they know that you've pointed out the loophole in their logic and their reasoning. So they abandon the point that they were making and then try to make another point. And then I'll be like, that's when I check out of conversations. This happens frequently. But I say that to say that this is exemplary of mutable madness. Because when someone pivots in the middle of an argument or debate in that way, you realize that it is not about being accurate or factual. It is not about any kind of objective way of perceiving something quantifiable, something like, okay, logically this makes sense, right? You recognize that at this point, we're not dealing with logic or facts or something that can be quantified. We're dealing with conviction, we are dealing with belief, and we are dealing with story. I try to talk about this in more practical ways because I know I can be a little bit kind of theoretical sometimes, saying the story that you tell, the story that you believe, the story that such and such and such and such. And it's like, well, how can I make this tangible for you? How can I make this thing of the story you believe about the way the world works? I'm going to give an example here, and this will relate to someone, somewhere, somehow, somewhere. A lot of people probably. So there are several reference or origin points for belief. There are beliefs rooted in experience, right? We tend to think of the more negative side of that, beliefs that are rooted in experience. So you may hold a belief that men ain't shit because men ain't been shit in your life. And so when you meet men, you be like, you ain't shit because all the men I know ain't shit, and you a man, so you must be ain't shit, right? That's one way to have a belief or a story. It's a narrative. And so you interpret men's behavior, whether or not you know them personally. You interpret men's behavior, right, through this narrative, through this lens. This is the story about men. Thank you, daughter of Triton. And another way to have a story or narrative or belief is because you want to believe it's true. You want to believe the law of attraction is true. You want to believe that all you have to do is control your mind, and then your whole life will be perfect and you'll have whatever you want. Right? You want to believe it's true. So we have stories or beliefs that come from experience. It's kind of the truth or story that we distill from our experiences. We have beliefs or narratives or stories that come from, we just want something to be true. We want to believe that people are good. And so, right, we want to believe that the law of attraction is real so badly. We want to believe in, right? And then there are beliefs that you have inherited. These are cultural and collective stories about groups of people, about society, about the origins of a nation. So we have stories on these three levels, beliefs on these three levels. I'm sure there's more, but those are the important ones. So when I talk about during Mutable Madness, especially this week, I ask questions like, let me see, I think I have the ones that I put on Twitter here. Hold on 1 second. Thanks so much. Appreciate your patience. Okay, where is it? Here it is. Some of the questions that I've asked are, I don't have those on here. They're still on my Twitter. Okay, the questions that I'm asking on Twitter about this week, about the astrology of this week, have to do with the ways in which your belief systems are out of date. The ways in which the narratives that you use to shape and frame and interpret your experience are old and they don't work anymore. The ways in which our belief systems, the narratives, the stories that we tell about ourselves, who we are, how the world works, how our lives work, how people in our lives work, right? These stories go out of date after a while. At some point, we are so far from the experiences that have shaped and informed these narratives that we're blindly applying them to our lives, to other people, to the world around us. And so when we have Jupiter transits of any kind, we are looking at the narrative in that particular area of our lives and saying, okay, is this story true? And by true, I don't mean objectively factual or verifiable or quantifiable. I mean, can you personally verify the truth of something for yourself in this moment at present? Can you tell a truth about yourself and your life that does not reference the past? Can you tell a story? Can you verify a truth about who you are that uses the present as a reference point? This is Mutable Madness. Can you tell a new story? Last week I asked a lot of people, some of my clients, and I think I asked it on here, can you talk about, define desire for yourself without referencing anyone or anything outside of you? Can you say what you want, how you want to feel, without referencing another person, without referencing something tangible out in the world that you need to have or do? Can you do that? Good morning, Rising Phoenix 86. So I ask this same question about your belief system, a similar question. Can you tell a story? Can you shape a narrative? Can you interpret your life and your experiences and what's possible for you without referencing the past, without referencing an experience that you've had with someone in the past, something that you've gone through in the past? How can you use the presence as a reference point for truth in your life? And again, by truth, I mean to verify with your own perception, to feel it in your gut, to know in your body that something is true. Can you? It's very, very, very hard. It's very, very, very hard. In the new moon tarot reading that I did last week, I talked about how often when we are in conversation with others and we are sharing our story with each other or sharing an experience or something that has happened, we often find that other people are not capable in that moment of really communicating with us at that moment. The way I described it is that I share something with someone and they're not really here with me. For whatever reason, whatever I've shared with them triggers their own experience. And so they start repeating to me the story about themselves, about their experience with this thing. right? They're not really giving me advice based on my own values, based on holding me accountable, based on helping me to maintain a level of integrity in my life. They're telling me a story based on their experience. And we do this all the time. I almost feel like we go into like this robotic mode, or we go into this space where something triggers us and we're no longer present to the person or situation in front of us. We are present to a narrative that we are invested in maintaining in our lives. So I ask you this question during this week of Mutable Madness 2019 that is focused on your Sagittarius and Pisces houses. What narratives have you been so invested in maintaining that they have kept you from embodying your most authentic intentions? What narratives, what belief systems have you been so invested in maintaining that they keep you from being the very person that you want to be? Now, this is why I've gone so deep into talking about the difference between fact and truth. No one can debate a fact. If it is objectively quantifiable, it cannot be debated. If I measure a stick and the ruler says 1 inch, you cannot really argue with me. The stick is 1 inch. And if you want to argue with me, then I really am not trying to have a conversation with you, because clearly you are not in your right mind. So no one is debating the facts of your experiences. No one is saying that this did not happen. No one is saying that this thing did not occur in your life. However, just because it's factual does not mean it's true. Just because this thing happened, just because you have a record of it, just because you have the evidence, the hardcore material quantifiable evidence, does not mean that you cannot tell a new story about the evidence. You can tell a new story about the facts of your life. The key here is intention. Who do you want to be? This is your moment. Who do you want to be? Separate from everything that you've been through, separate from the story that you've been telling, the story that you believe, the story that you've been told, the story that you've inherited. Who do you want to be? What is the intention that you must embody? As I've said since 2017, if you are not making your life and this world a living testimony of your intentions and your convictions, best believe somebody else is out there doing the work, and you're going to be living in their world. You're going to be who they designate you to be. They're going to be that you're going to take on the role that they give you. And so there's a time in life where we do that, right? When we're children, when we're young, we take on the roles that are given to us. We don't know enough about the world. But these Saturn transits are like, listen, man, like, grow up. Nobody's going to tell you what to do. Fire signs are trying to impress the internal state of their will on the outside world. Aries does it by the strength, right? Muhammad Ali, Saturn in Aries and Mars in Aries in the 10th house, right? The physical strength of his will. He enforced it on the world around him. He impressed upon the world this physical strength. Leo, James Baldwin, Moon and Mercury in Leo in the 11th house. His intellect, his mind, he impressed the power of his will through his intellect because he said so, right? The entitlement to perceive and call a thing as it is, to have that authority, right? But Sagittarius is about the intention of the will. It's about the why, the intentional why. Why are you doing this? What is motivating you? In my working session on the 2019 eclipse guide, I talked about the unintentional why. The unintentional why is the unconscious why. It's the the motivation that we are not aware of, the motivation that may be encoded in our bodies, the motivation that may be impressed upon us through physical experience that is making our body, compelling our bodies to move and experience the world in a certain way. But the intentional why is bringing that into your conscious and saying, I recognize that this particular thing has been motivating me. And I may not have the words to articulate it, and I may not necessarily remember the experience, but I know that this thing has been motivating me. I know this thing has been the fuel for me behaving a certain way and making certain choices. And now that I'm aware of it, I can set that aside and adopt a new story. I can set that aside and say, okay, I don't have to be motivated by this thing. I can constantly remind myself that when I'm behaving in this way that looks like evidence of this unconscious thing, of this unintentional thing, now I can be aware of it and I can call that thing out. I can say, oh, I see you abandonment issues. I see you fear of rejection. I see you avoidance of conflict. I see you fear of loneliness. I see you. I hear you. I recognize you. Thank you for protecting me. Thank you for keeping me safe when there was imminent danger. Thank you for reminding me to stay vigilant when people around me were unsafe. Thank you. I appreciate it, but I don't need you anymore. I don't need you abandonment issues. I don't need you fear of rejection. I don't need you anymore. You served your purpose and I appreciate you. I honor you. I recognize you. I thank my ancestors for cultivating this survival mechanism in me, but I don't need you anymore. I really appreciate it. Wow, you kept me alive and you kept me sane. You kept me here. And now I can tell a new story because I don't need those things anymore. This is the moment that we get to when we have this opportunity of 3 weeks with Jupiter in Sagittarius. We get a moment to look back on that Jupiter in Scorpio time period and how our survival instinct was shaping our perception, right? What things came up for you? In what ways have you become aware that your survival instinct was shaping your interpretation of certain experiences, of how you dealt with people in the world around you, the story you told? Now with Jupiter in Sagittarius, it's like, oh wow, okay, I did those things because I had to. But what am I doing because I must, because I'm compelled to, right? What am I convicted to do? So you can do things because your life depends on them, and you can, or rather, you can do things because your body depends on them, and you can do things because your life depends on them, right? Your intention. So I want to show you this book. This book is called Live Empowered, and it is by Dr. Julie Lopez. Rewire Your Brain's Implicit Memory to Thrive. Now, the cover is kind of misleading. This is not necessarily like a quote self-help book, but you may have heard me mention implicit memory in the video that's up on my YouTube channel, the 2019 Eclipse Guide Working Session, and when I talked about the unconscious why, and I talked about mutable madness 2019, and I talked about Pisces, the unintentional why rather. I talked about implicit memory. And it's those things that we don't necessarily have language for, but are definitely programmed in our bodies. So this book, I haven't started reading it yet, but if you're really curious about how you can work through some of the trauma stored in your body, this kind of explains the neuroscience behind implicit memory. And it has these resources in the back, all of these different therapies that can help you process the Resilient Brain Project, brain spotting, somatic experience, sensory motor cycle therapy, acupuncture, integrative manual therapy, therapeutic yoga, craniosacral therapy. I know for me and for a lot of people have been triggered, and old stuff is coming up and it's got you anxious and it's got you feeling a certain way. Jupiter's going back into Scorpio in a couple weeks, and so I'm pretty sure that this book is going to be a great tool for me and you, because I'll share what I read. Other than that, this week, people, Moon is in Taurus today. Wednesday is a big day. Wednesday, April 11th, is like a mutable madness, mad day. The moon enters Gemini. The sun in Pisces is square Saturn in Sagittarius. Jupiter is stationary retrograde at 0 degrees Sagittarius. The next day, Mercury enters Pisces and squares Jupiter at 0 Sagittarius. Sunday, April 14th, is a fiery day. So we get these two energies. Sunday, April 14th, the sun enters Aries, moon is in Leo, Jupiter is in Sagittarius. We get a nice fire trine. Woo! This week is doing the epigenetics. Epigenetics. This is the book, Britta. Live Empowered by Dr. Julie Lopez. It just came out. So yeah, this week, all of this immutable stuff. The moon is going to say, talk about it once it enters Gemini. We've got all of this Jupiter stuff happening. All of the Jupiter in Sag, Saturn in Sag, Sun in Pisces, Mercury in Pisces, and then Moon in Gemini is giving us this like, woo, whatever your eclipse story. I hope you've been paying attention to the moon in Gemini. If you've not been paying attention to the moon in Gemini, you're really missing out, because every single time the moon has transited Gemini over the past 3-4 months, like, stuff has been going on hardcore. It's been happening and getting down. So, make sure you download the 2019 sidereal moon transits, iCal, right? When I pull up my calendar, you can see the green and blue. Those are my two sidereal astrology calendars. My sidereal transits that tell me aspect sign changes, retrogrades, and then the moon calendar, which tells me every time the moon changes sign, the exact time. You need to keep track of this. I'm going to be creating a tool for you to follow the moon a little bit better. Thank you, Pathfinder 44. So yeah, the days this week that are a big deal, once the moon enters Gemini on Wednesday, so Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, those are big days. We might start feeling it later in the day on Tuesday. But yeah, this week is a major week. I hope you're paying attention. Every time I tell you that it's going to be a busy week, it's a busy week and things are happening. And so I hope that you take me at my word and you're paying attention, and you've got your sidereal astrology guide, your eclipse guide, and you're taking notes and you're following the houses, you're following the astrology and keeping track. And you're going back and looking over the past few weeks. So I would say go back and look. If you've got your 2019 astrology guide, go back and look at, it's not an app, Pathfinder 44, it's on my store online. Go to shop.thepeoplesoracle.com, and there are 2 digital calendar files that you can download and add to your phone's iCal. Add to your phone or your computer, or your phone or your computer, or your brain fart, or your like iPad or whatever's digital calendar. You just import the calendar and you'll have all of the dates and times of the new moons, full moons, eclipses, and the sign changes of the moon, as well as tablet. Thank you, Nikki. Yeah, so yeah, I keep these videos up on YouTube. I'll upload this one on YouTube at some point today. And yeah, I appreciate y'all tuning in. I'm gonna have to come back and watch this video because I know I was talking to myself through some of it. I appreciate y'all listening to me talk to myself. You all have a great Monday, and I'll see y'all tomorrow or Wednesday, depending on how I feel. All right, y'all take care now. Bye.